At this time, can I just say that I am sort of getting used to seeing this unfold in our neighborhood, and to be honest, this makes me more glad than anxious. Of course, I'm talking about what is happening in Nepal. To say that the past few days have been pivotal in Nepal is of course stating the obvious. But perhaps the biggest lesson learned as of now is this: our region is peaceful until it is not. And when the myth of peace is brought down by the anger of reality, the results are not always the greatest. But who said the fight for justice, equality and peace would be easy? My name is Kalyan Dev, and in this episode of Decoded, we try to understand what lessons we can learn from Nepal and why nearly every country around us is facing some type of upheaval except us.
Pursuing for months. The village of Assam in the 75th Independence Day.
I would not be lying if I said that whether it is Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Pakistan or even India, one thing is common. Even if we are peaceful, all it takes is one spark to turn a simmering anger into a full-blown volcano. I mean, remember Bangladesh? Peaceful on the outside until one day the facade came down so bad the country is still recovering. Or remember Sri Lanka in 2022 when locals in millions hit the streets tired of a nation that had been bankrupt by criminals masquerading as political leaders. Or remember the protests that hit the streets of Pakistan when Imran Khan was arrested. Sure, that particular protest did not materialize too much in the end, but it reminded us of one thing. We, the citizens, may be separated by religion, boundaries, cultures and traditions, but essentially we are all angry. We are all angry at how the public continues to be taken for granted. And Nepal, one fine day, said, enough is enough. On September 9, 2025, when protesters torched the parliament, the Supreme Court, political residences and media offices while releasing prisoners, some were quick to term it as a natural reaction to the previous day's crackdown that killed 19 young demonstrators. But that would be slightly simplistic. These actions, following Prime Minister K.P. Sharma Oli's resignation, has revealed an ideology that, as of now, threatens to undo Nepal's hard-won democratic gains. The Gen Z protests were born out of frustration and Nepal's chronic political dysfunction, especially in light of what has happened in the last 2 decades. After the triumphant Jan Andolan II of 2005 overthrew absolute monarchy and promised a Naya Nepal, the political establishment has delivered only instability and self-serving governance. And here is a shocking stat to convey my point. Since the 1990s, Nepal has witnessed 15 heads of government across 28 tenures. And this is not specific to the left or the right, whether the mainstream Nepali Congress, CPN-UML or the CPN-Maoist Center, all prioritized unethical alliances over electoral mandates. Despite transitioning from constitutional monarchy between 1990 and 2008 to becoming a constitutional republic in 2008, no prime minister has ever completed a full term, making Nepal one of the most politically unstable democracies. The consequences are stark. The economy banks on remittance, leading to significant youth out migration, soaring unemployment and failure of diversification in a country that the UN calls least developed. The disillusionment resulting from an entire generation growing up watching its country's potential squandered has now birthed new political forces. These include the Rashtriya Swatantrata Party, which is led by Rabi Lamichhane, and independents such as Kathmandu Mayor Balendra Shah, reflecting a genuine public hunger for alternatives. However, some positions assumed by these new voices raise concerns. Mr. Shah's call to dissolve the elected parliament rather than for a caretaker government leading to elections suggests either democratic immaturity or, more dangerously, a willingness to abandon democratic norms. Bangladesh's recent upheaval, which led to democratic backsliding and the increase in power for Islamic parties, offer a cautionary tale. Nepal must not make the destruction of state and civil society institutions for democratic renewal. The crisis demands stabilization and long-term constitutional reform that fulfill the promises made before the Constituent Assembly process, but which were diluted by the time the constitution was written. Political instability has also meant that long-standing inequalities between rich and poor, rural and urban, educated and less educated remain entrenched. These divides are most pronounced among youth. The main cohort that led the demonstrations against political elites in protests described as Gen Z versus Nepo kids, with the former demanding accountability while directing anger at the latter. Nepal's overall unemployment rate stood at 12.5% in 2022-23, but the burden falls disproportionately on the young. Among those aged 15 to 24, unemployment reached 22% compared to 11.5% in the 25 to 44 age group and 7.5% among those aged 45 to 64. Inequality cuts across multiple dimensions. Education creates stark differences. Unemployment stands at 18.1% among those with only basic schooling, compared to just 6.3% among bachelor's degree holders. Geography adds another layer. While Kathmandu Valley records the lowest rate at 7.6%, unemployment exceeds 20% in many rural regions. Critically, labor force participation itself is much lower among poor, rural and less educated populations. Among the relatively fewer in these groups who enter the labor market, a higher share cannot find work. This creates a double disadvantage. Not only are they unable to find unemployment, but many are not even actively seeking it due to lack of relevant opportunities. This has pushed many, especially from disadvantaged groups, to seek work abroad. About 1 in 4 males in Nepal is absent from home, with a significant share living outside the country. The growing exodus of Nepali workers is not just limited to India. Current remittance sources show that Qatar with 10%, Saudi Arabia with 9%, Malaysia with 8.6% and the UAE with 7.1% are the most preferred non-Indian destinations for Nepali workers. Personal remittance have surged from just 1% of Nepal's GDP in 1990 to over 33% in 2024. By this measure, Nepal ranks as the world's 4th most remittance-dependent country behind Lebanon, Tajikistan and Tonga. Notably, this World Bank figure covers only cross-border remittance and excludes internal transfers, underscoring out-migration's critical role in Nepal's economy. These statistics show precisely why Nepal's youth had taken to the streets with such fury, even if the violent upheaval that followed the Gen Z protests the next day deserves a closer look at who instigated the arson and vandalism that targeted Parliament, the Supreme Court and other institutions. Well, we have nothing to learn because unlike Nepal, we are living under a Chedin. Unlike Pakistan and Sri Lanka, our economy is on its way to become a $5 trillion economy. We are now Vishwaguru in global diplomacy and Nepo babies only exist in Bollywood, not politics. And since the government has created millions of jobs for youths, unemployment is a problem of the past. Just like slow internet. And we have fast internet, right? So we can watch the protests happening all over the subcontinent in full HD or even 4K. And in this case, if it was not clear to some of you, sarcasm, every issue that has led to massive protests across the region exists in our country too. If anything, things are worse here in many ways because of the sheer population of India. But we are so divided on religion, state, caste, culture, political ideology and everything else that we are unlikely to see such a protest in India. And by the way, we did have similar protests of sorts. Remember India against corruption? What happened to that? Half the leadership ended up in BJP, and the less we say about corruption and the BJP, the better. The other have formed Aam Aadmi Party, and Anna Hazare is neither active nor interested. Plus, give the man a break. He is a lot of things, but he is not a Gen Z. India today feels like a boiling pot. Just like Nepal, we too are grappling with corruption, unemployment, inflation, poor infrastructure, and the growing impact of climate change. The floods and landslides in the Himalayas this season showed us how fragile things can be, yet our attention quickly shifts elsewhere. We argue, we divide ourselves, and we often measure solidarity depending on who the victim or the accused is. But the larger question remains: are those in power really listening? Are they preparing us for the challenges ahead, or are we simply moving in circles? India is young, restless, and full of potential. But potential alone is not enough. Unless we begin to ask the right questions and hold those in authority accountable, the boiling pot will keep simmering.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to EastMojo. For any queries, put them down in the comments section below and press on the bell icon for notifications.